Hello, welcome to CBC. You are watching Frankly Speaking analytical program. I'm Bakhtar Hasanovim Baku, and our guests are two professional speakers from the United States, Dr. James Thurber and Mrs. Claudia Thurber. James Thurber is a distinguished professor of the American University in Washington, D.C., and scholar of elections, Congress, and presidency in the United States. Mrs. Claudia Thurber is a professional lawyer with more than 20 years of experience in the federal service, a member of the Washington Bar, and an expert in women's role in politics. They will talk about the election system and the ongoing presidential race in the United States. Mr. and Mrs. Thurber, thank you both, first of all, for receiving our invitation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My first question is to you, Mrs. James Thurber. Overall, what can you say about the U.S. election system and the phases in the presidential campaign?
Well, we're at the last phase right now, just a little over a week, and we will have an election on November 8th. It started, though, in February of last year, and from February to June we had primary elections and caucuses to select the two nominees for our two parties. We have a two-party system, Democrats and Republicans. Mr. Trump, Donald Trump, was selected as the nominee for the Republicans, Hillary Clinton for the Democrats, and it was a great surprise that Mr. Trump got the nomination. We can talk about that later if you want. And then after the nomination phase, we had conventions where the parties come together and officially nominated. Then we had three debates that occurred. They were very contentious debates, and now we're in the final stages of this election where the candidates are traveling throughout the United States to states that are very important in terms of the outcome of the election.
About the ongoing presidential race, what do the Republicans and Democrats hope to achieve during the campaign?
Well, I think they both want to win. You know, they both want to win, and I think it's very hard right now for Mr. Trump because he's made so many mistakes. Hillary Clinton would like to project an essence of being a president. All of the polls show that she's ahead in the national electorate, you know, the popular vote, but also ahead in a thing called the Electoral College, which is complex in the United States. So it looks like she will win. She's trying to talk about her policies. He's trying to survive at this point.
So, Mrs. Claudia Thurber, what's your opinion in this regard?
I think that Secretary Clinton is mounting a very professional campaign, and she is the first woman to run for president. We have only had two women run unsuccessfully for vice president in our history. She comes particularly well qualified, being an attorney by trade and being in the Senate and also being secretary. I think she's the intellectual. She's not the show horse. She's the workhorse. They often don't campaign as well as the show horses, but she's there.
Okay, Mr. James Thurber, why hasn't an effective third party developed in the United States so far?
Because both parties in the United States control access to the ballot. And it's very hard for a third and fourth party to get access to the ballot, to get their names on the ballot. And also, most Americans are either Democrats or Republicans or independents, and independence is not a party. They don't vote at high rates. And so there's a bias towards only having two parties. That will continue for quite a while. The main reason that some countries have multiple parties is that they have proportional representation, meaning they run in a particular state in the United States, and whoever comes in the top 3, 4 gets seats to a Senate or to the House of Representatives. We have winner take all. If you win by one vote, you're either a Democrat or a Republican in, and that's the way it is for the presidencies too. So it's going to be a long time before we have a multi-party system because it's sort of set up in a way that makes it difficult for third parties.
Maybe Mrs. Claudia Thurber, you want to add something?
I think it's also difficult for third-party candidates to get the funding, the publicity, all that they need to be known to run. And that's what I would add to that. They're simply second-class candidates, no matter what.
Okay. Mr. James Thurber, Don't you think that the outdated election system in the U.S. continues failing to represent the people's will, and where people are unable to get directly involved in elections? How can we call it a democratic election?
Well, people can get involved with elections, and they do through volunteering their services to the candidates. We have a system called the Electoral College, which some people feel should be amended, that it is winner take all in a state like California. It has 55 Electoral College votes. Now bear with me, there are 2 senators from California and 53 U.S. representatives to the House of Representatives. That means they have 55 Electoral College votes. Now if Hillary Clinton wins by 1 vote in that state, she gets all 55 of those votes. She needs 270 to win, but she gets all of them even if she wins by 1 vote. If it was proportional representation, the Republicans would get 40%, she probably gets 60% of those votes, and that's where some people feel that it is not fair.
And what are your views about?
I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay.
I think that...
You don't want to add anything?
No.
Okay, okay. Mr. James Thurber, Donald Trump insists that the November 8 election is rigged against him. He even said that people that have died 10 years ago are still voting. Even illegal immigrants are voting. What kind of measures are being taken in the U.S. against the election forgery?
Well, there's not a lot of evidence behind his statements that there's fraud in the elections. In fact, the elections are run by secretaries of state in each state. 31 states have Republicans as Secretary of State. So they've been outraged. They have said, Mr. Trump, what are you saying this for? We're running a clean election. There's been no indications from recent elections that there has been a problem. We have ways to investigate that through our Department of Justice. There are some states that actually have the administration at the county level, not the state level. And so those officials that run this, the professionals, like your election commission here, they're angry that he's saying that. They're Republicans that are angry. I don't see a lot of evidence of it, and certainly there will be extensive investigation if there is evidence of fraud, and it will be transparent and open when we have that investigation.
And you want to add something?
I think that if there are any difficulties, they will find evidence of a small mistake. Taking this down to the polling level, first of all, the absentee ballots are very carefully checked. But secondly, as a voter, and I don't think Jim and I have ever missed an election voting, even coming from an airplane to vote, your ID is checked, you are voting in your neighborhood, your neighbors know you, everything is very secret, it's very careful, it's very secure. I would be very surprised to see any evidence of fraud. Mistakes happen to all of us occasionally.
But there are accusations that people who have died are on the rolls and could vote, but there's no indication that that people are voting under their names. You have to have an identification. And the problem is that in some locations they just haven't taken those people off the rolls. So for example, in Indiana, I just read this morning, Indiana has 2,383 people that are 110 years old. Now that's impossible. Maybe they have 2 people that are 110. So, but people cannot vote unless they have ID in Indiana, and so the accusations of fraud, there's just no factual basis for it, in my opinion.
With over 10 days left before the election, what do you think? Will the election be historic?
Will it be historic?
Yeah.
It's already historic. It will be more historic. Everything I have read from the polls says that Hillary Clinton will be our next president, which is something that is, of course, very important. But what is also important is you need to look at who she will appoint in all of the administrative offices, who will be Secretary of Defense, who will be Secretary of State, and all the way down to the lowest of the political appointees. That's something that we really need to watch.
So who do you think is going to win?
Be appointed?
Who is going to win?
Oh, to win? I think Secretary Clinton will win. From the polls, everything suggests that.
And your opinion, Mr. James Thurber?
Well,
and why?
if you look at many polls, surveys, not just one, you'll see that the trend is towards Hillary Clinton. She's ahead in the national polls, 4 to 11%. She's way ahead in the Electoral College, meaning winning states like New York and California, of course, but in the states that are competitive, you need 270 Electoral College votes. At this point, it's projected that she'll have 340 Electoral College votes, and Trump will have 175 maximum. She will be the next president of the United States, according to polls, not according to what I want, but according to the polls and the analysis that we can see.
Okay, Mr. James Thurber and Claudia Thurber, thank you very much for your comprehensive replies to the questions. It's all for today. Thank you for watching. See you next time.